Book 9. Number 1. Whosoever does injustice commits sin. For universal nature, having made reasonable creatures for the sake of one another, to benefit each other according to desert, but in no wise to do injury, manifestly he who transgresses her will sins against the most venerable of the gods, because universal nature is a nature of what is, and what is related to all that exists. And further, he who lies sins in regard to the same divine being, and she is named truth, and is the first cause of all truths. Now he who lies voluntarily commits sin, insofar as by deceit he does injustice, and he who lies involuntarily sins, insofar as he is discordant with universal nature, and creates disorder by fighting against the natural order of the universe. For he who is carried of himself counter to truth, doth so fight, since he had before received from nature aptitudes, by neglecting which he is now not able to distinguish falsehood from truth. Moreover, he who runs after pleasures as goods and away from pains as evils commits sin. For being such a man, he must necessarily often blame universal nature for distributing to bad and good contrary to their desert, because the bad are often employed in pleasures and acquire what may produce these, while the good are involved in pain and in what may produce this. And further, he who fears pains will sometimes fear what is to come to pass in the universe, and this is at once sinful, while he who pursues pleasures will not abstain from doing injustice, and this is plainly sinful. But those who wish to follow nature, being like-minded with her, must be indifferent towards the things to which she is indifferent, for she would not create both, were she not indifferent towards both. Whosoever therefore is not himself indifferent to pain and pleasure, death and life, honor and dishonor, which universal nature employs indifferently, plainly commits sin. And by universal nature employing these indifferently, I mean that in the natural order they happen indifferently to what comes to pass, and follows upon an original impulse of providence, whereby from an original cause it had an impulse to this world order, having conceived certain principles of what should come to be, and appointed powers generative of substances and changes and successions of the like kind. Number 2. A wiser man's part had been to go away from men without tasting falsehood, hypocrisy, luxury, and pride. A second best course is to breathe your last, filled at least with distaste for these things. Or is it your choice to sit down with wickedness? And does not your experience even yet persuade you to flee from the plague? For corruption of understanding is much more a plague than such a distemper and change of this environing atmosphere. For this is a plague to animals, as animate beings, that is a plague to men, as human beings. Number 3. Disdain not death, but be well satisfied with it, because this, too, is one of the things which nature wills. For as are adolescence and old age, growth and maturity, development of teeth and beard and gray hair, begetting, conception, and childbearing, and the rest of the natural functions which life seasons bring, such also is actual dissolution. This, therefore, is like a man of trained reason, not to be rash or violent or disdainful in the face of death, but to wait for it as one of the natural functions, and, as you know, wait for the unborn child to come forth from your wife's womb, so expect the hour in which your soul will drop from this shell. And if you would have an everyday rule to touch your heart, it will make you most contented with death to dwell upon the objects from which you are about to be parted, and the kind of characters with whom your soul will be no longer contaminated. For you should in no wise be offended by them, but rather both care for them and bear them gently, yet still remember that your deliverance will not be from men like-minded with yourself. This alone, if anything could, might draw you back and detain you in life, were it granted you to live with those who had adopted the same doctrines. But, as it is, you see how great is the burden in the discord of life lived with them, so that you say, "Come swiftly, death, for fear I, too, forget myself." Number 4. Whosoever does wrong, wrongs himself. Whosoever does injustice does it to himself, making himself evil. Number 5. Often he who omits an act does injustice, not only he who commits an act. Number 6. Sufficient are the present judgment that grasps its object, the present social act, the present disposition well satisfied with all that comes to pass from a cause outside the self. Number 7. Wipe out imagination, check impulse, quench desire, keep the governing self in its own control. Number 8. One vital spirit is distributed in irrational creatures. One mind spirit is divided in rational creatures, just as one element earth is in all earthy things, and we see by one light and breathe one atmosphere, all that have sight and vital spirit. Number 9. All that partake in something common to them hasten towards what is of the same kind. The earthy all tends to earth, the watery all flows together, and the nature of air is similar, so that they even need things to hold them apart by compulsion. Fire rises because of the elemental fire, but is so ready to combine in combustion with all fire here below, that every material that is a little too dry is easily ignited, because what hinders ignition is mixed in it in too small proportions. Therefore also, all that partakes of a common mind similarly, or even more swiftly, hastens to what is akin. For in proportion as it is superior to the rest, so is it more ready to mix and be blended with its own kind. At any rate, there were found, from the first among irrational creatures, hives and flocks, care for nestlings, and what resembles love, for already there were vital spirits there, and in the higher part the tendency to union was found raised in degree, as it was not in plants or minerals or trees. Among reasonable creatures, constitutions, friendships, households and gatherings were found, conventions too, and armistices in war. Among the yet higher, even among beings in a sense separated, there subsisted a unity such as obtains among the stars. Thus progress towards the higher was able to produce a sympathy even in what are separated. Notice then what occurs now. Only intelligent creatures have now forgotten that zeal and inclination to each other, and here only you do not see concurrence. Yet even so, they are overtaken in their flight, for nature is too strong for them. Watch, and you will observe what I mean. Certainly one would more quickly discover something earthy, not attaching itself to the earthy, than man entirely cut off from man. Number 10. Man, God, and the universe alike bear fruit, each in the appropriate season. But if custom has come to apply the word strictly of the vine and similar fruits, no matter. Reason too has its fruit, for the whole and for itself, and from reason other results, similar to itself, come to pass. Number 11. If you can, change him by teaching, but if you cannot, remember that kindness was given you for this. The gods too are kind to such men and even cooperate with them to some objects, to health, to wealth, to reputation. So good are they to men, and you may be so too. Or say, who is there to prevent you? Number 12. Labor not like one who is unfortunate, nor wishing to be pitied or admired, rather have only one wish, to bestir yourself or to keep quiet, as the reason of the city requires. Number 13. Today I escaped all circumstance, or rather I cast out all circumstance, for it was not outside me, but within, in my judgments. Number 14. All things are the same, familiar in experience, transient in time, sordid in their material, all now such as in the days of those whom we have buried. Number 15. Things stand outside our doors, themselves by themselves, neither knowing nor reporting anything about themselves. What then does report about them? The governing self. Number 16. Not in feeling but in action is the good and ill of the reasonable social creature, even as his excellence and his failings are not in feeling but in action. Number 17. To the stone that is thrown up it is no ill to be carried down, nor good to be carried upwards. Number 18. Penetrate within, into their governing selves, and you will see what critics you fear and what poor critics they are of themselves. Number 19. All things are in change, and you yourself in continuous alteration and, in a sense, destruction. So too is the universe as a whole. Number 20. Another's wrong act you must leave where it is. Number 21. The ceasing of action, impulse, judgment is a pause and a kind of death, not any evil. Now pass to the ages of your life, boyhood for instance, youth, manhood, old age. For each change of these was a death. Was it anything to be afraid of? Pass now to your manner of life under your grandfather, then under your mother, then under your adoptive father. And when you discover many another destruction, change, and ending, ask yourself, was it anything to be afraid of? So then even the ceasing, pause, and change of your whole life is not. Number 22. Make haste to your own governing self, to that of the whole, and that of this man. To your own, to make it a righteous mind. To that of the whole, to remind yourself what it is of which you are a part. To this man's, that you may observe whether it is ignorance or design, and may reflect at the same time that his self is of one kind with your own. Number 23. As you are yourself a complement of a social system, so let every act of yours be complementary of a social living principle. Every act of yours, therefore, which is not referred directly or remotely to the social end, sunders your life, does not allow it to be a unity, and is a partisan act, like a man in a republic who for his own part sunders himself from the harmony of his fellows. Number 24. Children's fits of temper and dolls and spirits carrying dead bodies, so that the story of the visit to the abode of death strikes one more vividly. Number 25. Penetrate to the individuality of the cause, and separating it from the matter, look into it. Next, isolate the time which at longest this individuality can by its nature subsist. Number 26. You endure a myriad troubles because you are not content with your governing self doing the kind of things it was formed to do. But enough. Number 27. When another blames or hates you, or men express such sentiments, go to their inward selves, pass in and see what kind of men they are. You will see that you ought not to torment yourself in order that they may hold some opinion about you. You must, however, be well disposed to them. For in the natural order they are friends, and moreover the gods help them in a variety of ways, by dreams, by prophecy, to get, however, the objects about which they are concerned. Number 28. The rotations of the universe are the same, up and down, from age to age. Now either the mind of the whole has an impulse to each individual, and if that is so, welcome what it initiates, or else it had an impulse once for all, and what follows is consequential upon that. And why are you anxious? And whether the whole be God, all is well, or whether it be chance, somehow molecules or atoms, be not yourself, then ruled by chance. In a moment earth will cover us all. Then earth, too, will change. And what ensues will change to eternity, and that again to eternity. A man who thinks of the continuous waves of change and alteration, and the swift passage of all mortal things, will hold them in disdain. Number 29. The matter of the whole is a torrent. It carries all in its stream. What then, man, is your part? Act as nature this moment requires. Set about it, if it is granted you, and don't look round to see whether anyone will know. Don't hope for Plato's utopia, but be content to make a very small step forward and reflect that the result even of this is no trifle. How cheap are these mere men with their policies and their philosophic practice, as they suppose. They are full of drivel. For who will change men's convictions? And without a change of conviction, what else is there, save a bondage of men who groan and pretend to obey? Go to now and talk to me of Alexander, Philip, and Demetrius of Phalerum. If they saw what universal nature willed and went to school to her, I will follow. But if they were actors on the world stage, no one has condemned me to imitate them. The work of philosophy is simplicity and self-respect. Lead me not away to vainglory. Number 30. Look from above at the spectacle of myriad herds, myriad rites, and manifold journeying in storm and calm, diversities of creatures who are being born, coming together, passing away. Ponder, too, the life led by others long ago, the life that will be led after you, the life being led in uncivilized races. How many do not even know your name? How many will very soon forget it, and how many who praise you? Perhaps now will very soon blame you, and that neither memorial nor fame nor anything else at all is worth a thought. Number 31. Calm in respect of what comes to pass from a cause outside you. Justice in acts done in accord with a cause from yourself. That is to say, impulse and act terminating simply in neighborly conduct, because for you this is according to nature. Number 32. You have the power to strip off many superfluities which trouble you, and are wholly in your own judgment, and you will make a large room at once for yourself by embracing in your thought the whole universe, grasping ever-continuing time, and pondering the rapid change in the parts of each object. How brief the interval from birth to dissolution, and the time before birth a yawning gulf, even as the period after dissolution equally boundless. Number 33. All that your eyes behold will very quickly pass away, and those who saw it passing will themselves also pass away very quickly, and he who dies in extreme age will be made equal in years with the infant who meets an untimely end. Number 34. What governing selves are theirs? What mean ends have they pursued? For what mean reasons do they give love and esteem? Accustom yourself to look at their souls in nakedness. When they fancy that their blame hurts or their praise profits, how great their vanity. Number 35. Loss is nothing else but change. In this universal nature rejoices, and by her all things come to pass well. From eternity they came to pass in like fashion, and will be to everlasting in other similar shapes. Why then do you say, all things ever came to pass badly, and that all will ever be bad? So no power, it seems, was ever found in so many gods to remedy this, but the world is condemned to be straitened in uninterrupted evils. Number 36. The rottenness of the matter which underlies everything. Water, dust, bones, stench. Again, marble, an incrustation of earth, gold and silver, sediments, your dress, the hair of animals, the purple dye, blood, and so all the rest. What is of the nature of breath, too, is similar, and changing from this to that. Number 37. Enough of this wretched way of life, of complaining and mimicry. Why are you troubled? What novelty is there in this? What takes you out of yourself? The formal side of things? Look it in the face. The material side, then? Face that. Besides these, there is nothing, except even now at this late hour, to become simpler and better in your relation to the gods. To acquaint yourself with these things for 100 years, or for 3 is the same. Number 38. If he did wrong, the harm is with him, but perhaps he did not. Number 39. Either all comes to pass from one fountain of mind, as in a single organic body, and the part must not find fault with what is for the good of the whole, or else there are atoms, nothing but a mechanical mixture and dispersal. Why then be troubled? Say to your governing self, are you dead, gone to corruption, turned into a beast? Are you acting a part, running with the herd, feeding with it? Number 40. The gods are either powerless or powerful. If then they are powerless, why do you pray? But if they are powerful, why not rather pray them for the gift to fear none of these things, to desire none of them, to sorrow for none of them, rather than that any one of them should be present or absent? For surely if they can cooperate with man, they can cooperate to these ends. But perhaps you will say, the gods put these things in my power. Were it not better then to use what is in your power with a free spirit, rather than to be concerned for what is not in your power with a servile and abject spirit. Besides, who told you that the gods do not cooperate even in respect to what is in our power? Begin at least to pray about these things and you will see. That man prays. How may I know that woman? Do you pray? How may I not desire to know her? Another prays. How may I get rid of him? Do you pray? How may I not want to be rid of him? Another. How may I not lose my little child? Do you pray? How may I not be afraid to lose him? Turn your prayers round in this way generally and see what is the result. Number 41. Epicurus says, "In illness my conversation was not about the sufferings of my body, nor used I," he says, "to talk to my visitors about such matters, but I continued to debate leading principles of science and to keep only to this, how the understanding, while conscious of such changes in the mere flesh, is yet undisturbed and preserves its own proper good. I did not even," he goes on, "permit the medical men to give themselves airs as though they were doing some great thing, but my life passed on, happily and brightly. Do the same then as he did, in sickness if you are sick and in any other circumstance, for it is common to every school not to desert philosophy in any at all of the accidents of life, and not to gossip with the ignorant and unlearned. Be intent only on what is now being done, and on the instrument you use to do it." Number 42. Whenever you are offended by a man's shamelessness, ask yourself immediately, is it possible then for the shameless not to be in the world? It is not. Do not then ask for the impossible, for he too is one of the shameless who must exist in the world, and have the same ready also for the rogue, the traitor, and every kind of wrongdoer. For directly you remind yourself that the class of such persons cannot but be, you will be gentler to them as individuals. Another useful thing is to call to mind immediately what virtue nature gave man to meet this wrong. For she gave as an antidote against the unfeeling, mildness, against another some other faculty. And generally speaking, it is in your power to convert the man who has gone astray. For every man who does wrong is going wrong from the goal set before him and has gone astray. And what harm have you suffered? For you will find that none of those with whom you are angry has done the kind of thing by which your understanding was likely to become worse, and it is there that your ills and harms have their entire existence. How is it an evil or strange event that the uninstructed does what uninstructed men do? See whether you should not rather find fault with yourself for not expecting that he would do this wrong, for you had aptitudes from reason to enable you to argue that in all probability this man will do this wrong, and yet you forgot and are surprised that he did wrong. But most important of all, turn inward to your own self, whenever you blame the traitor or the ungrateful. For the fault is plainly yours, whether you trusted a man with such a disposition to keep faith, or whether, when you bestowed a favor, you did not give it unreservedly, or so that you received the whole fruit from your act itself then and there. For when you have done good, what more, O man, do you wish? Is it not enough that what you did was in agreement with your nature, and do you seek a recompense for this? As if the eye asked a return for seeing or the feet for walking, for just as these were made for this which they effect according to their proper constitution, and so get what is theirs. Even thus man is made by nature to be benevolent, and whenever he contributes to the common stock by benevolence or otherwise, he has done what he was constituted for, and gets what is his own.